Okie dokie. Let's just dive in for a minute. Good evening. It's Wednesday night over here in sunny, boiling Las Vegas. That was the full moon, and it was spectacular last night, especially like 4 o'clock in the morning. It's going to be spectacular tonight as well. The skies are very clear. There's no precipitation, no humidity, nothing here. And even with massive amounts of city lights, you can still see the moon very, very well. And you can see some of the planets too. Anyway, I just wanted to make this short video in honor of the full moon. I'm going to show you what I mean over here. So, here we have it on the ephemeris. Here's my messy, wonderful, happy ephemeris. We can learn so much from this. I do my best to make my interpretations and formulate opinions and share them in ways that I hope are useful. We already know we've been dealing with recent Mercury retrograde, Venus retrograde, Saturn retrograde, and as of today, Uranus retrograde, and also we have Neptune and Pluto retrograde. So that's a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 retrogrades simultaneously. Heavy duty. So if it feels like everything is grinding to slow motion and a lot of issues are coming up that were either unexpected or unwanted, or they've been avoided, or they've been hidden, or never even had any kind of awareness of their existence, well, now is the time when they're going to start to show up for illumination. So with the full moon, of course, we have sun opposing moon, moon opposing sun, exact degrees. I didn't actually make a chart for tonight. I'll show you why. Because the chart for tonight is almost identical to what it was on Sunday evening when we did our live show. Mars has moved on a tiny bit, Mercury has, Sun has, Venus, everything's moved on a tiny bit except for the retrogrades. Of course, they look like they're going backwards, 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 backwards. But anyway, this is almost identical to the charts for tonight. The only difference, major difference, is that the moon, which was over here on Sunday night in the late Capricorn, is now here at the early degrees of Pisces. So this is the full moon axis that we have right now. Sun in Virgo, moon in Pisces, and of course, as you can see, Saturn is involved. So there's very serious overtones here, especially when it comes to the subject of disease, illness, anything and everything that is wrong with perhaps individual people in your life, all the way up to the sickness of humanity, the sickness of people across the world. I talk about astrology in ways that some astrologers don't talk about, or they don't want to because they don't want to get banned or whatever, but I have to call it out as I see it. I'm drinking a little bit of Coca-Cola because frankly the heat here is crippling, and I'm using artificial enhancements. It's got a little bit of caffeine, and of course it has sugar. This is just the original high fructose Coca-Cola. It's very rare that I do things like that, but I have to tell you, I do like a little bit of Coca-Cola now and again. Anyway, with this axis here, what I'm noticing, and I've commented before, is this vivid awareness of sickness and disease from whatever it might be, your own personal health, your friends and family, your town, the local news, the national news, the international news, the political news, the financial news, all of it. Anything and everything that is sick is and unhealthy is being exposed. And again, I'm stretching the astrology here, but because Saturn is in the early degrees retrograde, Neptune is in the very late degrees retrograde, the orb of influence, the way I do astrology, it basically encompasses the whole of the 12th house Pisces Neptune vibe. So the subject of sickness, hidden enemies, deception, lies, betrayal, tragedy, loss, addiction, suffering, abuse, nasty, evil stuff that goes on under the guise of I will save you. All those kinds of things. There's a lot of very, very dark subjects that I'm probably not going to mention here. But you might have seen the movie Sound of Freedom, for example. That touches a very, very difficult subject. We might have talked about the activity going on around the dividing line between the United States and Mexico, and so on. The dividing line between the United States and Canada, and the sickness and bizarre disparities that are going on with politics and so on. I've talked about this aspect a lot with China, because China has Pisces second house in terms of money, and the whole financial world of China has basically imploded, and it's imploding, and it's going to continue to implode. And oh, hello, I'm just seeing some, oh, hold on, give me I got to catch up here. I'm just seeing the chat this moment. Fluffles, okay, if you are taking readings, I got your money. I fixed it. I need a reading. I have a specific question. It's for my safety. Okay. Oh, hold on, let me just catch up a bit. Hi, Fluffles. Yes, good evening. Hello, Necessary. Yes, Fluffles, I can, yeah, of course, I'd be happy to do so. I wasn't planning to be here for a 3-hour marathon, but I could do a reading for you. Necessary Truth, Fluffles, you have to tell me the meaning behind your name. Every time I type it, I keep seeing the bear from the Snuggles commercial. Okay. Okay, let's see. Fluffles, I rescue animals. I rescued 2 senior cats, brothers, knowing they had major health problems. I had them for 5 years, and one was named Fluffles. I didn't name him, but I wasn't going to change it. Oh, that's wonderful. They were both 10 and 11 years old. That's fantastic. Oh, that's wonderful. You had them for 5 years until they passed in your arms. Well, that's actually beautiful. That's beautiful. Yes, saw it. In the Barbie movie, I fell asleep. It was boring. Fluffles, thank you. Hello, Fancy Nicole. Oh, thank you, Fluffles. Cheers, everybody. Thank you for dropping in. So, even in my deepest observations with some of the most, I would say, trustworthy news sources that I like to look at, very little is talking about the realities of China. Some of the financial sources that I go to, they're mentioning China, and that is pretty bad. But if you go deep inside to the China material, it's devastating. It's absolutely devastating. And it's not going to stop. The whole of China is deeply affected by this profound aspect here. There's a lot of karmic kickback for abuse, basically by the ruling elite on the people of China. The people of China have been so heavily abused for so long, they don't really know anything else, but they are waking up and saying enough is enough. And it's not going to stop, especially when you had this Neptune in Pisces retrograde. You know, we talked about all the intense flooding for millions and millions and millions of people in China. I know right now in the United States we've got the big issue with Idalia over here. And you can track it. Idalia has already moved up to here. It's a massive hurricane. You know, and there's a lot of people whose property, they've lost everything. And the storm is going to move on here. There's flooding. There's whatever they call it, where the water, storm surge. It's going offshore. And it's possible that the storm will merge into another massive hurricane out in the Atlantic. There's another massive hurricane right out here that might merge and become a monster. Okay. So, anyway, I'm not going to dissect it all too much, but this big, fat, harmonious green kite, basically the grand trine, which is a very harmonious aspect, is giving everything on earth a moment of gentle stability, while even though everything is very turbulent and shaking around, it's happening in such a way that we're dealing with it. Okay. So when I combine those two key elements here, what I'm seeing is what I talked about actually about 10 days ago, where these massive convulsive tectonic shifts in human history. I mean, it's history, it's happening right now. All the things that are happening in the United States, politically speaking, and the global financial banking system, massive, irreversible tectonic shifts and upheavals. It's all happening right now. And then when we get back to we, the people, the 8 billion people on Earth, they're starting to realize more and more and more. Thank you very much, Aries North Node. I want my life back. I want to be me. I want to be my own sovereign self. I'm sick of redundant, obsolete, unhealthy, and never-ending relationship scenarios, all the way up to politics and banking and religion and culture and anything with which you relate, where you either consciously or unconsciously give the other party all the power, and you make yourself subservient to the relationship. You've got to understand that there are things about that which are very unhealthy. There's nothing wrong with Libra. There's nothing wrong with the 7th house. It is the house of open enemies, so you can very easily see what's going wrong. And dear Pluto, for all its intense pressure, is actually helping to wake people up, to realize, oh my God, what have I been thinking about relationships overall? My banking relationships, my co-worker relationships, my interfamily relationships, my lover, my partner, my children, my relatives, my friends, all of that, whatever it is. Seeing it all in a new light, and you got about 1.5 years to recalibrate it so that you can constantly emphasize the whole notion of Aries North Node. Okay, I've marked that over here. I know it's a mess. Let me see if I can. Can you see through my mess? I know, it's pretty weird. Taurus North Node. Okay, it's right here. And there's little Chiron. Now, I just wanted to use this chart because I wanted to illustrate, without having to make a whole new astrodoodle, that the moon is already shuffled along from here to here. We're in the full moon right now, Pisces, Virgo, Virgo, Pisces. And to me, it's a very stark awareness that you can't escape, that it seems like everywhere I go, with everyone where I'm connecting, they're witnessing a lot of the things that are wrong and not working in their lives, especially if it comes to health issues or health of loved ones and so on. And they're figuring out what to do next. And, I'm doing the same thing. The Virgo energy over here is basically saying, okay, so we've identified and spotted a lot of things that aren't working. What are we going to do about it? And all the sickness is realizing, oh my God, we've been spotted. We can't escape. The intense, powerful light of the sun is lighting up everything that is wrong. It's, it's like a nest of, cockroaches. Once you've if there's a very active nest but they haven't been discovered, and then all of a sudden they're discovered, and you rip off a plank of wood or a piece of paper or some clothing or furniture, and all of a sudden all the roaches are exposed in the light of day. They're running everywhere trying to scramble and hide so that they can keep their world going. So that's the oppositions that we're seeing here. So the question is, what are we going to do about it? I could talk a lot about it. Okay, Fluffles, I got it. Don't worry. Okay, I got to go through some notes here. It looks like we're going to do a reading for Fluffles in a minute. I just wanted to share something else. Actually, I've got two things I want to share. I'm going to keep this one. This is a new Astrodoodle I just made. Somebody dropped a hint to Love Triber to send a hint to me, like, hey, check out the charts for September 23rd. Okay, so I did. Now that's over 3 weeks away. But can you see something going on here? You see this? You see this? You see how astrology works in weird and mysterious ways? Some aspects move very slowly. They're very big. They're very powerful. They're very sublime. Sometimes you don't even know they're happening. Some are very blunt and in your face. Now, if you look deeper into this chart, what I'm actually showing you is that this big fat green trine here, Greenwich trine, is a renewed version of this one, because this grand trine has actually morphed into another looser, softer grand trine here to here to here, with the original Neptune and Pisces at the top, still leaving us with this kite. So it's effectively like we have two grand trines. We have the big fat one here, very tight, very accurate, and the original one here from like 6-8 weeks ago, still functional. So that's a lot of, let's say, rich, comfortable, harmonious energy, which is acting like a massive shock absorber that allows humanity to deal with some of the really, really difficult things that are going on in the world of sickness and disease, okay, across the world. You know, millions of people becoming sick in China from all the worms and fungus in the mold. All the death from wars and wars and wars. The next organized, let's say, there's a massive new bug that is scheduled to be released any minute now. It's just going to happen to coincide with a major event at the end of 23 and into 2024. Some people would use the words interference with a very big voting event that happens in this country. So I happen to be one of the people that feels the last big major bug, which was number 19, it's all planned. And another one is scheduled. And there's so much scandal that goes on with this. I'm not going to go deep into it. I got my opinions, you got your opinions. But anyway, sickness and disease of all kinds. You know, we've got 8 billion people here. 2 billion live in extreme, dire conditions. Bad water. No, instability, insecurity regarding food, water, shelter, climate, disease, money. It's really, really, really bad. And it's on a massive scale because we've never had this many people on Earth before. Okay, let's have a look. So I wanted to emphasize that. I just want to put that here. We'll keep this around because I don't know what else is going to happen. We've still got exactly the same vibes going on here with the North Node and Pluto. Very, very tight, very, very heavy T-square, waking people up, asking everybody to say, come on, people, wake up, for God's sake. Okay? Now, let me just do one more astrodoodle, because I just made it earlier today, but I was at the library. I was trying to do some live broadcasting, but everything failed. Mercury retrograde, thank you, whatever you want to call it. I don't care, but there was, where is it? Oh, I had it here. Where did I put it? Oh yeah, it's here. Well, thank you, Fluffles. Okay, so I'm just going to put this up to the side. This is the September 23rd, so we're going to come back to that in a few weeks. We just talked about this. I just reformatted this for today, where we have the full moon. Thank you very much. We just talked about that. And I just wanted to do something else, a little unusual and different. I didn't have all my tools in studio with me to do what I wanted to do, but I've done my best because I'm very, very deeply concerned about the United States right now. Let me just check in with you a tiny bit over here. Some of you know I'm a fan of this fellow called Tucker Carlson. He's on the conservative spectrum, so to speak. He's a very beloved character in the world of patriots and American population that wants to reconstitute the Constitution and reclaim the beautiful thing that we have today that we have lost, or we're in deep jeopardy of losing. Anyway, something very interesting happened where he was in Hungary very recently, because I think some of you know Hungary just sent huge amounts of supplies to the LINA people in Hawaii for the fires. And yet at the same time, Uncle Joe is doing nothing. He's sending billions and billions to Ukraine. If you're outside of the United States, it makes total sense, the absurdity that's happening here. Everyone else outside the United States is looking at the United States, wondering what the hell is going on with your country. You are in deep, deep, deep trouble. Okay? I agree. It's not over, but we're in very, very deep trouble. And it's at the very foundations of our essence here. So I thought, you know what? Let me pull up the astrology of the United States and look at the transits and how they're affecting us right now. And I'm not going to go into a long spiel about it, but there are a few things that really, really stand out. And I'll kind of go over here. Let me see if I can do this without stumbling too much. Now, this is not going to be very visually, let's say, digestible, but this is the astrodoodle that I made. Now, these marks here represent some of the major aspects of the United States astrology and how it relates to each other with the planets. For example, let's just run through them. Sun in Cancer, Jupiter in Cancer, Mercury in Cancer, Venus in Cancer, okay? Venus, Jupiter, Sun, Mercury, all piled up there in the 8th house with Cancer. I'm using what's called a whole signs chart, okay? It just makes it easier. It's not perfect, and some astrologers don't like doing that, but I do, okay? Now, these are the main themes. There's a very, very strong Cancerian theme for the character of the United States. So we're talking about home, family, security, safety, comfort, the nest, everything to do with, classic Cancerian vibes. Cuddling up on the sofa, hanging out with your pets, and thinking of your life from the perspective of the home, the nuclear home, okay? That's why it's such a big deal in the United States. The home and the family is the essence of this country. And then we go to the next step. Let's see. Okay, so we did that house. Okay, Sun, Venus, Jupiter, Mercury. Let's go to the moon. Okay, so moon is over here, 27 degrees Aquarius, okay? And very close to the foundation of the charts over here. And Sun, Moon, we did Mercury, Venus, okay. Over here in the 7th house area, we got Uranus and Mars in Gemini. Okay, so that's a very, very lively energy in the way that we relate to others, others relate to us. Very, very unique. The United States is kind of unique in the world population in that we have, I would say, a lot of things that some places don't. But in some ways, it's under a lot of duress right now. We'll talk about that another time. I just want to focus on some of the key things that really stood out to me today. Stood out. The United States is also born with Neptune in Virgo, 22 degrees. The United States has a midheaven right over here, almost like 0 degrees Libra. It's born with Saturn in Libra. Challenges with relationships, delays, conflicts with relationships, even with the best of intentions. And it's in the 11th house. You can see that this is very challenged. Let's keep going on over here. America was born with Chiron in Aries. America's born with Pluto in Capricorn, 27 degrees. Now, I'm just doing a quick scan. When I look at the transits that are happening today, oh God, it's such a mess, this chart, isn't it? Anyway, you can see there's a very powerful opposition here between Mercury and Pluto on very, very tight degrees. And this is very much the issue, what's happening in the United States right now, because this aspect is very much to do with money. This would be big corporate cartel, elites, oligarchs, type of money, Washington, D.C., U.S. Federal Reserve, treasuries, big, big, big money in Capricorn, talking about domination, control, management, and so on. Retrograde. Contrasting very directly with Mercury in retrograde in Cancer, which is very much to do with the original, let's say, energy of America, where it's all about the homesteaders, small holdings, farmers, families, millions and millions of farms and farmers and farming families all across the country. Everybody working in their local communities, like farm to table and farmers markets and small towns and small towns and the nearby cities that depend on all the farming communities around. Now that vibration is being totally destroyed by the consolidation of cartels up here, things like Archer Daniels, Midlands, the big food cartels, Smithfield, Tyson, I said ADM, and so on and so on. And these energies are perpetually opposing each other in a permanent state of war. In other words, it's the small family farmer versus the massive profit-hungry corporation that depends on the, the economies of scale. In other words, when they create massive chicken farms, massive feed cattle farms, massive pig farms, massive salmon fisheries, yes, then they can make things more efficient and they can keep the price down of beef cattle. They can do it with oranges, tomatoes, strawberries, almonds, everything. The whole of American agriculture and business which was the foundation of American business originally, has been turned into a massive corporate cartel. And that corporate cartel is the enemy of the small family and the small family business. And that small family business, which has been decimated and crushed and pulverized by the cartels, those people, there's millions and millions and millions of them, and there's only a few of these people here. These people here, I would call them the good, wholesome people of America. They are enemy number one to the cartels over here, okay? So, this is a perpetual war that is born into America. It's never going to stop, but right now it's very heavily accented because this war becomes very much the historical spotlight every 250 years. And the same thing happened roughly 250 years ago, where we the people said, enough is enough is enough. We don't want to deal with taxes anymore by some external oligarch, tyrannical empire cartel. We want our own small farms and families. That's it. And eventually, the people who founded this country and created our Constitution, I've talked about this many times, blah, 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 all this stuff here, they understood. They understood in 1776, after they'd gone through a lot of turbulence, they just said, enough, we have to document this, we have to put it on paper, we have to make it very clear, this is the new model of how we're going to operate as a group of people. We're going to call ourselves the United States of America, and we're going to be Americans. And instead of being slaves and serfs to a bunch of feudalists and empires and kings and queens and lords and despots and tyrants, we're going to have a coalescence of the people, we the people, who are going to flip everything upside down, where we take our group power over here in the 11th house, and so long as we remain virtuous and we maintain our integrity and our wholesomeness and our good intentions, we can hold our elected leaders accountable. And these leaders work for us. They work for we the people, so that we the people can get done what needs to be done for the best interests of we the people. And the very moment you elect someone and put them into power, that power starts to corrupt instantaneously. So, in the early days, the federal government was very, very small. It was mostly just to do with foreign trade and supervising the military and keeping an eye on the American dollar currency. And that was about it. Everything else was done in the states, in the towns, in the villages. And that's why we have what they call, I believe it's a federal republic, constitutional republic, as opposed to a democracy. And so the structure is set up in such a way that it's a complete inversion of everything else that humans had known before. In Europe, everything was kings, queens, monarchs, despots, tyrants, empires. Okay, the United States threw all that away, and now in the United States, 250 years later, in this Pluto journey on the massive Pluto return, we have now turned into our own worst enemy, just as these folks, the founders, just as they predicted. They already knew well in advance that after an extended period of time, the people that we the people elect to work for us, to take care of very important issues of business that need to be administrated for the good of our amazing place. They already knew in advance that the people who took those offices would get so addicted to the power and the money and the control that they apparently seem to have over the people, that they would not let go. And that's exactly where we are today. It's a massive historical wake-up call, And more people in the United States are realizing this. In general, they're not aware. The masses are oblivious, but there are enough people, I believe it's about 78 million so-called patriots, are fully awake and fully aware, and I consider myself one of them. And I'm hoping the message spreads farther and farther, because we need every single one we can get. Because all the power that's vested in here in Washington, D.C., the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch, along with the Federal Reserve, is absolutely corrupted. Absolutely. What's that expression? Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. We are at that point where absolute power has been attained, and it corrupts absolutely. It is completely self-evident on the political stage in America right now. Everyone outside of the United States is just, it's almost like it's either a comedy show, or it's shock, or it's incredulous, where. And that's what was happening in Hungary a few days ago with Tucker Carlson. He was outside of the United States looking into the United States, and he realized how terrifying things are here right now. We have an administration in this country that is completely and utterly corrupted. They have absolute power, absolute control, and all the money. And they are abusing it every way they possibly can to destroy what remnants of power are still vested in we the people. So it's a very similar physiological characteristic to a human being who is heavily affected by metastatic cancer that has gone all the way through their body, stage 4 metastatic cancer. It is possible to survive a condition of stage 4 metastatic cancer. But you have to have an extremely powerful will to live, to rise above the threat of imminent death. That's where we are right now in America. A lot of Americans can't see it because we're here, we're inside, we don't have the perspective. I feel like I do because I like to take a look from the outside in. Not everybody does that. Anyway, so let me just go out to the things I wanted to point out. Give me a second. The things that stood out to me. So I talked a little about the American astrology. The things that stood out to me, number one, I've been talking about this for years, okay, literally years. I even wrote the book years ago, okay? And everything in here has come true and is continuing to come true, as predicted using my astrology. Look at that, global restructuring, January 2020. Now, some of you know what that aligns with. Anyway, here we are today. What is it? It's 3 years later. We're still dealing with the same energy field because this moves very slowly. Right now, Pluto's retrograde at the pretty much exact degree of the birthplace of Pluto for America. So the pressure is intense, and it's showing up in Washington, D.C., the Federal Reserve, and all the state and local governance. Okay, it's showing up in the taxes. It's showing up in the abuse of American finance across the world. It's showing up in how the American people have been fleeced and undermined by a Federal Reserve banking system, which is, gosh, I could talk about that forever. But anyway, it's very, very bad news for we the people. So this issue is ongoing, and it's very, very powerful. It's happening right now. It's very frightening. It's very tragic because we're very close to death, okay? In biological terms, we have gone full circle. And let's say Pluto moves this. This is about a 250-year cycle. Break it up into about 60 years. 60 years from here to here. 60 years from here to here. 60 years here to here. 60 years from here to here. And the observances of Ray Dalio, he's not aware of the Pluto cycle, but he describes it like this. These were very, very hard times 250 years ago. People fought and died to create what we have today, this thing. Okay? Hard times breed strong men. Strong men breed good times. Good times breed weak men. Weak men breed bad times. Guess where we are now? Here. Okay. It's very, very bad. I don't think people understand how bad it really is. Personally, I think America has amazing resilience and we will recover. But we are very, very close. We're almost in a death spiral when it comes to the United States, okay? It's kind of scary. So, there's that going on. The next thing that's going on that really struck me is, well, this is very transient. The moon is 27 degrees. Moon, okay. Right now, at this moment in time, the moon is conjunct Saturn, more or less, in the heavens. That's the transits right now. And it's very, very close to our moon in Aquarius. That just passed a few days ago. This is happening at the foundations of our so-called astrology. So you can see how shaky things are, okay, for the United States in our foundations, okay? Now, over here, the other thing that I noticed is that in America is born with Chiron in Aries, right here. And guess what? Chiron is transiting in Aries right here. So that references me back to this again. This is a very, very, very prominent aspect for the United States because it's all about we the people, the individuals, finding ways to unshackle ourselves from very unhealthy, redundant cesspool, sewer drain of inappropriate relationships. Those inappropriate relationships would have been with despots, banks, perverts, anybody that is trying to exploit you, the individual, for their advantage through what appears to be a nice relationship. That would be a politician looking at you in your face and saying, hello, listen, you got to trust me. Vote for me and I will save you. And if you're dumb enough to believe that, good luck. You're going to need it. So this is very, very painful right now. I think America and a lot of Americans are in a lot of pain. Financially, emotionally, physically, like ethically, morally, in terms of spirit. A lot of damage is being felt right now because this is like an Achilles heel. This is like a very deep, deeply painful nerve. It's the same as, I don't know, have you ever done that thing where, as little kids, I went through a lot of cruelty like anyone else. And you can really disable a child with a few very, very nasty moves, like around the neck, around here, and doing some horrible, despicable physical acts that are very, very disabling, psychologically, emotionally, physically. And those remain as scars forever until we outgrow and mature out of them. But in the United States, it's to do with the self, the damage to our sovereign selves after thousands of years of people sublimating themselves to a so-called higher order. A king, a queen, a monarch, a tyrant, an emperor, a despot, just like what's happening in China right now. That's why there's so many miserable Chinese people. It's very sad. Anyway, America is going through that right now. America is like, it's like when you are wounded, okay, when you're a child, and that wound and that scar stays with you for life. And then anytime that wound or scar is activated or touched, or there's a reminder, it's very, very painful. Even though it's very, very old, just the slightest touch of the reminder just brings up the deep pain and suffering. And that's what we're feeling today, I believe, from our ancestors, because there was so much pain and suffering, loss and death and war to basically restructure everything in a way that we have it today, where there was so much benefit to we the people in a way that never ever happened before in human history. We're very close to losing it, okay? We're not dead yet, but we're very close. We have to be very careful, very vigilant. We have to activate our immune system as a people. We have to activate our immune system as individuals. Activate the will to live. Now, so that's very, very painful. What was the other thing that I noticed? Venus, no, it was like... born with Neptune and Virgo, Mercury. Yeah. You know, I think I'm just going to forget about those, but these are also very sensitive hot spots right now, but it's going to take too long to talk about them, so I'm just going to put that aside for now. But I wanted to put that up because I noticed this today is when I was watching Tucker and I was listening to his buddy Donald and all the stories that are coming out, and on the shadow side, all the stuff that is being released about all the toxic, the sickness, the pus. Okay, this is going to sound really disgusting. I was trying to describe it earlier today to a dear one. This is how it feels to me. So with that big Pisces Virgo polarity going on right now, and the incredible stability of those big grand earth trines going on right now and for the foreseeable few weeks, we the people are enjoying a period of stability with reality, while at the same time there is some very turbulent, shocking, convulsive activity going on in the world. You know, fires, hurricanes, tornadoes, volcanoes, eruptions, floods, whatever it is. Italia, China, forest fires all over Canada, arson all over Greece, and things like that. But it's an acceptable thing because this is our reality. This is what's happening. So, okay, what's going on here? And it's allowing us like a sort of a massive security blanket, like a safety net, which is allowing us to see all the sickness. We got to reveal it to heal it. And when you look what's happening in Washington, D.C. right now, full exposure, complete full exposure. The Virgo light is shining very powerful energy on the really, really sick stuff going on in Washington. And just like, the sick people want to live as well as the happy people who want to be happy. So like the cancer cells want to live, and they will do anything that they can to live. Same thing with any disease, like an infection or a parasite or a worm or something. It has a life force. It wants to live. Think of a weed, a plant, a weed. It wants to live. And the way it does that typically is by destroying everything else in its path. But weeds don't care. That's just how they are. It's not good for other plants. But anyway, it's on full display. In the world where I observe things, I feel I have a lot of clarity and trustworthy information. In a world where information is propagated in the Americas through what's called the mainstream media, there's a lot of subversion and smoke and mirrors trying to stop you, the people, from seeing the extent of squalor, sickness, evil, and disease that's actually going on. The mainstream media is covering it up. But the stench is so bad, it's like rotten meat, rotten milk, dead bodies. It's so bad that no matter how you try to cover it up, the stench is still there. And that's how I describe it. I know I might be overstating things a little bit, but that's the most accurate way I can describe what I'm seeing. Okay. All right, let's get on with things. I've got a reading to do. Fluffles wants a reading. I'm going to put these aside. Oh, gosh, let me see here. Put that over here. I'll put this. All right. So Fluffles, bear with me. Thank you for your patience, everybody. I felt compelled to put this video out today. I was trying to do it much earlier, but everything stumbled. But we're here. All right. So, all right, Fluffles. Thank you. Thank you. Let's have a look. Now I'm going to have to... sorry, I haven't been able to watch any of the chat because I've been doing my show. We're going to do a reading for Fluffles. Okie dokie. Over here. Did anybody know, just before I work with Fluffles, I'm just curious, do you feel that I did a pretty good job of getting a message across without finger pointing direct in the face of some of the really bad people? I'm trying to operate in such a way that I have less chance of my videos being flagged, warnings, strikes, and all that stuff. Because things have to be said. We still have a Constitution. We still have the First Amendment. We still have the Second Amendment, okay? Anyway, I think I'm proud of myself because my language can get a lot more spicy than what I'm sharing on this channel live, I guarantee. But in some ways you don't want to go there. I can get very spicy, very blunt, very direct. I can spill out stuff that, like, I already know, and I watch a lot of channels with the astrology, and I get validated from these high-powered finance channels and political channels, and I kind of go, I told you so. I knew it. Now I just have to be very careful, okay? Anyway, so here we are, all on the full moon, and I'm going to have to scroll back. Let me see. Fluffles wants a reading. Now, she came in here really early. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, bear with me, Fluffles. Okay, I'm rescuing animal. Okay, going to donate. Okay, here it is. Okay, I've got it. I think I've got it. My question is specifically, there is this guy who is a bartender at a place I go to, and I think instinctively he is going to try and give me a DUI. I don't think he likes me, and he is asking. Ooh, that's kind of creepy. Question about where I go on the daily, and I think there's an issue. I feel in my gut something is wrong. Wow. I think he's willing to call the cops on you and telling other bartenders to do the same. I only have 3 drinks, but this kid, I think, has it in for me. Okay, well, Maybe, who knows? I mean, maybe you're just paranoid because you're becoming very conscious, aware of the fact that you have 3 little beverages in the evening, you know? Well, you already have your answer. Don't doubt you're going to find a new hangout, painting studio, ASPCA, feral cat rescue, a gym, yoga, lots of lecture. No, but see, the thing is, like, Fluffles like to have a beverage. I understand, Fluffles, you like to have your beverage. I love my beverages. I can't do it anymore, so I don't. But I totally understand you. Okay, necessary home. Okay, this is some chat. For a work event, I'm dousing myself with holy water before I step in it. Okay, I understand. Okay, I'm over 2,000. Well, okay, all right. Okay, so I'm just mouthing to myself what's going on. Yeah, JP is hilarious. He can say things that I can't. His channel is blessed. It's amazing. There are several channels out there that are blessed. One of them is JP Sears. He's outrageously hardcore right-wing. And he's blessed, and so he gets away with it. Same thing with Russell Brand over in England. Same thing with Dr. Steve Turley. These are big channels, millions of people, and they are blessed. I say controversial things, but if I do that, I get slammed. They get spanked. I get slammed. Okay. Okay, so let's keep going. Okay, that's a little strange. Where else do you go? What is it? What business is that? Okay, that's creepy. That's really creepy. Okay. Okay. No, okay, let's do the reading. I think I get the idea what's going on. So give me a second here. I gotta switch to water. Okay. Alright, here we are. Okay. Before I go into the reading, Fluffles, I just had a bit of a, I guess you could call it a little message. Let me see if I can share it effectively. I saw something about a sports bar. I'm going to admit, Fluffles, there was a time in my life when I spent many hours in a bar. All sorts of bars all over the world. Because I like to have my beverage, and I felt I was quite gregarious. And alcohol and a beer, a glass of wine and a whiskey, I felt very much at home. But sometimes there are these very vivid encounters where people are like this, or they get in your face, or it's a very uninhibited environment where people form opinions and they stick to them. And I have been in situations in certain types of bar where there's massive amounts of testosterone, unnatural, unhealthy amounts of testosterone, either in an individual or in certain clusters of men. And it can get very ugly and very toxic. Now, we also know that you're a powerful woman, okay? There are a lot of males who are terrified of powerful women. They don't know that they're terrified. And so what they tend to do is they take on a posture of like testosterone-fueled dominance. They don't know that they're actually frightened by you, and they're trying to exert a form of dominance, and that's very ugly. Okay? I don't fit very well in those environments. I'm a very soft, mushy type of character. I've had more than enough encounters with high testosterone environments. There were parts of my life where I was extreme high testosterone, and I'm glad I'm not really that way anymore. But I'm very familiar with the characteristics. So anyway, let's get in. Let's have a look here. I have seen some horrific things happen between men and women when there's a little bit of alcohol involved, and when certain, let's say, triggers are activated, and it can turn into a smoldering, nasty kind of secret war. Sometimes things get right in your face, really ugly. Well, let's see what happens. Let's just see what comes up. What kind of messages we have here for Fluffles tonight regarding this particular character who seems to be showing their colors in terms of what is, let's say, inappropriate for a professional bartender. If Fluffles is there just to enjoy a few beverages and then go home, you know. Okay, we're going to talk about the other side of it, but let's do the reading first, okay? What kind of messages do we have here for Fluffles tonight on this matter? Here's the situation. Here's the challenges. Here's how we're going to handle it. Let's have a look at external influences. Of course, I usually defer to the planets. We have the devil. Okay, I kind of had a feeling. So with the devil here, it's a two-way situation. It's very, very important, Fluffles, without any judgment coming from here or from the audience or anyone else around you. There is a binding situation here where consciously or unconsciously you are binding yourself to something that is effectively not working for you. And there is a reciprocal mirror image happening the other way. So I don't see this as bad or good or judgmental. It's just an awareness. It might be to do with the oppositions that we're sensing here. Female, male, the classic number one opposition. Man, woman, woman, man. Now, as you know, in nature, these characters have a profound attraction to each other, and billions of people have a counterpart. When you get to a certain biological age, things like your hormones and pheromones take over, and the natural biological prerogative to procreate starts to impact every aspect of relationship. Boy meets girl. Forget the, I'm talking about the traditional relationships. I'm not talking about gay, lesbian, trans, all of that stuff. I'm keeping it simple, just traditional old-fashioned male-female, okay, just for simplicity's sake here. Where we are designed to be drawn together, men to women and women to men, in order to reproduce, in order to survive. That's it. Really, really crude, really, really simple. And that reproductive act happens in adverse situations or in harmonious situations. There are situations where there is procreation and there's outcome, and sometimes the outcome is desired, like, say, a harmonious, loving couple that actually want to have a home and a family and kids and babies, you know, all that kind of stuff. And there's the other version of it where it's based on, let's say, passion, romance, a fling or something toxic, negative, hostile, whatever it is, which has it's another variation of the same energy. Either way, it's a biological prerogative that brings people together. And in a sense, here with the Devil card, it's an understanding that, to me it feels, is that there is a very, very natural binding here that's happening, whether you like it or know it or not. Now, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but it's a very, very natural, very, very powerful force. Let's have a look at the situation itself. Okay, with the Nine of Wands, it looks like you're up to your neck in it here. And it's to the point where you're up to, if you're having to have a tarot reading about this, where you're holding your ground, and yet you're very aware that you're surrounded by, let's say, increasing energies that are making the viability of a situation and the ability and the to stand ground, it comes into question here. And with the Nine of Wands, there's like a pause going on here, like, what am I really doing? I'm actually holding my ground, okay, but is it worth it? Because I'm outnumbered. Doesn't make any sense. I could just, continue. Let's have a look. What's the challenges here? Okay, transformation, the Death card. Again, don't be scared. You've got two of the scariest cards in the deck, okay? The beauty about the Death card is it's all about transformational energy healing. The death of an old way that allows the birth of a new way. And a lot of people are terrified of the unknown. The whole prospect of having to change is so terrifying, so unacceptable, because it's almost like it's an affront, it's an assault, it's an insult to you, to the ego. In other words, you look in yourself in your mirror and think, why would I back down? Why would I change? Why would I transform myself to accommodate a situation where I'm perfectly in the right to be me, to go to this place, to have these beverages, to be with these people? If they can't handle me, that's their problem. Okay? Now, the other flip side of the energy here is sometimes the phenomenon of transformation can feel like a death of the soul, a death of the spirit. And that's very, very scary for a lot of people, so they don't like it. A lot of people are resistant to transformation. In a broader sense, it's evolution. A lot of people don't want to evolve because it means having to accept certain things that are unacceptable to the ego. That's a problem here. Now let's have a look. How are we going to deal with this going forward, okay? Okay. So with the Four of Pentacles here, the energy changes quite significantly. It makes me feel that what's important right now is to take stock of your situation. Hold on. Give me a second. Let me go to this one here. This is the 27th. Okay, here we go. This is the chart that's rebuilt for today. This is from a few days ago. Here we are at the full moon. Okay, look at the Four of Pentacles here. Okay. It's a very strong card. The Four of Pentacles can indicate building a foundation, maintaining your castle, maintaining your moat, making sure that your assets, your structure, your world, your domain, your turf is well protected and stable. On the other hand, it can go too far where you have to ask if it's worth it. And so there's several vibes I'm feeling up the Four of Pentacles here. The first one is to see your situation from a very, very realistic, like three-dimensional standpoint. and allow the reality that you observe to, let's say, present itself to you. In other words, let's say you go to this place and you're experiencing this unacceptable behavior from this particular bartender and some of the other folks who are there. And that's the reality of the situation. And let's say there is a certain vibe there, testosterone, estrogen, politics, finance, or whatever it is, turf wars, like, oh, this is a guy's place, you're a girl, what the bleep are you doing here, F off, that kind of vibe. If whatever the details are of that definition, let's just say that is the reality of the situation, and then accept that reality for what it is. And it's like, use that as the foundation for figuring out what to do next. In other words, it's like looking at the situation from a very, very neutral perspective. Okay, so I don't sure who's, I haven't been watching the chat. So I know you're concerned, oh, is he going to get other bartenders to call out the cops on me? So if part of the Four of Pentacles is also to hold your ground. Part of it is to accept the reality for what it is. If there's all sorts of establishments where you like to hang out and he's trying to contaminate your good name wherever you go, to the point where he's behaving like a snitch, some low-life scum cockroach snitch, where he's calling his cop buddy and say, hey, there's this lady, she's just roaming around bar to bar, stirring trouble up wherever she goes. Can you arrest her? Can you do something about her? I mean, you know, that's kind of malicious and very infantile for a bartender. But if you're feeling that that kind of stuff's going on, then it's something to acknowledge. So what do you do about it? You got to hold your ground, figure out what is most valuable to you. Can you conceive of the idea of changing? In other words, in your local environment, if it's a small town, and there aren't any other places to go besides the places where you go, and you feel that your good name is being blasphemed and tarnished wherever you go, then that is a problem. There's another way you could go, is you could head it off, and you could I mean, I've done things like this. I'm just going to give you, okay, I've had a lot of encounters that involve police in my life, okay? Not so much recently, but I got to a point where in balance, pretty much always, the police were on my side, and I was very, very glad to be able to have the police there. In smaller towns, it might be the sheriff or whatever it is, or maybe there's a small police department or office somewhere. And you don't know how things are in a town until you face up to a situation. And what this Four of Pentacles is also suggesting to me is, this might sound very like topsy-turvy, but it might, I'm not saying to do this, it might be an idea to go into the police department and talk to one of the officers on duty. If you feel safe and comfortable with the people in your environment, maybe there's a woman officer or a male officer, someone where maybe you have if you can discern an officer that you could trust, someone who's on the counter. Pretty much every town has a place where you can go file a report or just go up to the counter and talk to somebody. And I do that because I want to know where I stand legally in a situation or an environment or a community. And you could put your concern on the table. Like, from a perspective of a woman, I'm concerned for my welfare. I like to have a beverage. Okay? It's a small town. I like to go to this place, this one, this one, this one, and this one. And I'm starting to get some very weird pushback from a couple of characters who have made it a little where you feel unwelcome. And what can you do? Because you're not breaking any laws. What can I do as a woman who likes to go to these places I like to go out and have a beverage? What can I do if I feel like I'm being undermined or harassed? Is it just paranoia? Is it fear? Are the cops supposed to act on a tip-off from a bartender? I mean, I would really be right in their face. You could tell them, I'm scared. I feel like I'm being harassed, I'm being targeted, and so on and so on. Now, of course, if you do that, you don't know what the community network's like. Maybe the top cop is best friends with the bartender, and it'll backfire. But sometimes you have to stand your ground and just be really blunt and open with things. I don't know. I know what you're talking about. They're going to put you on the radar. But my feeling is with this reading here is that there is a profound message, is that transformation and change is in the works for you personally. There's a reluctance to transform and change for natural reasons. It's mostly just personal feelings. Why should I change my behavior to accommodate these people who are effectively, making life uncomfortable for me in a place where I like to be comfortable? But you have to understand, with the Devil card, it goes two ways. You yourself are 50% of the situation. The problem isn't 100% over there. The problem isn't 100% with you. It's a joint situation. You are tied to the problem just as they are tied to the problem. You're feeling that they are the ones who are identifying and perhaps calling out a problem. Maybe you're intuitive and you can sense that in advance. Maybe you can get ahead of it and do something about it. But there would also be the internal resistance, like, well, why should I even do this? Why can't I just go and enjoy myself? I have a right to be me in a bar and have my beverage and go home and have fun. I understand that. But that will be the Death card in the position of fear and challenge, is where, like, the ego would react differently and say, like, well, I'm having a problem here. It's not my fault. And what that can do is that can amplify the problem. So essentially, it's like you're wrestling with yourself. And one of the hardest things that I think are some notes are like, why don't you just walk away? Now, the downside of those notes that I'm seeing here is that where do you go if you walk away from that situation? Because you could literally just go, I don't need to go here anymore. You don't have to bring your business, your patronage, your company to that place if you're feeling unwelcome, or that you're going to be, let's say, that someone's going to snitch and try and target you. I know I wouldn't want to be in that situation. I don't like being targeted. It takes an awful lot for me to get a response. But anyway, I don't want to go into that too deep. I think when I see the Four of Pentacles, it's got layers of how to deal with it. Number one, hold your ground, but don't force a situation. Look at the physical reality. Do you really want to deal with the situation? If so, despite the transformational resistance, the thought of decoupling from something that you feel you have a natural right to have, that's very offensive to the self, to the ego. And on the other hand, is there any shame in walking away and finding other places to be comfortable where you don't have to put up with that BS? Okay, so it's a very ambiguous reading here. It makes it very difficult for me to take a side or to try and predict the future. With the Four of Pentacles, it's very much about deal with the physical reality. If the physical reality is that there's a certain hostility, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to tighten up your moat, tighten up your defenses, hold your ground, and just continue to go and put up with the BS because you have the right to do so, possibly inflaming the situation more and more and more? Or do you kind of go, you know what, the reality is that if they don't like me, why would I want... There's another way to look at it. Why would you want to be with someone or people who don't want to be with you? It sounds very rude and offensive. I almost wish I hadn't said that, but I've said it and I can't take it back. You know, very, very difficult situation. I have to tell you, Fluffles, this is a very difficult reading for me. That sounds odd. It's not just a regular reading. It's a very, very difficult one from my perspective as a reader. What do? Do you hold your ground? Do you get into these existential conversations where, you know what? Bang, 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 your fist on the counter. Listen, Mr. Bartender, I have a right to be here. You know, if you think I'm drinking too much, put it on paper. Call the cops. Snitch. Go on. I still have a right to be here. What's that cop going to do? Okay? What are all your bartender buddies going to do? Oh, it's Fluffles. She's coming in. Fluffles is here. Fluffles is here. All that kind of stuff. Do you want to get sucked into all of that? Are you willing to stand your ground and deal with it and maintain your rights? And what are the consequences of taking that particular posture? One aspect of the Four of Pentacles is hold your ground. Build sturdy protection, defenses. Protect your money, your privacy, yourself, your rights, your home, your castle. On the other hand, maybe the best way to do that is just grab your assets, which is you, and get out. I'm not going to say any more. I hope that helped, Fluffles. I'm sorry it's a completely ambiguous, ambivalent, unresolved reading. It's pretty rare that happens. All right, thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to call it quits. It's just supposed to be a mini reading, a little mini show. I wanted to talk about the astrology that I mentioned. I think we did that. I'm not going to go and repeat it over and over again. We've been here quite a while. So have a super evening. Enjoy the full moon. It's over here. It's going to be very big, bright, and beautiful. Thank you for dropping by. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your companionship and being part of this wonderful little community that we have. I am going to stop the stream now from here, but I don't know when it's going to shut off over there. So I'm just going to switch to some music where I know I can have a timestamp on the video and we will exit from there, okay? Gracefully, I hope. We'll see.